mic should now be live.
This is just Kim.
Okay.
So she's muted herself.
I'm not sure Marchant may not have got one.
Mark, you had a presentation, correct? I do. Do you want to use this?
Wow, everyone got dressed up. Here I am with just a...
This is dressed up for me.
Yeah, really. What's that? I was looking at Marchant and Tracy Lynn. All
I know.
these people dressed up, and here I am. At least I got a collared shirt on.
I thought we're supposed to get dressed up on the first night. The first night, July 6th for pictures. Yeah,
Pictures tonight, right?
No, you sure?
I'm sure.
Pictures tonight.
It's all downhill from here, brother.
We all set? Well, I guess we'll call this meeting, or whatever you want to really call it, orientation to order. I'd like to welcome everybody. And I'm not really the holder of the agenda, but I guess I get to present it. So to start off and welcome who's all here, I would like to introduce Steve Shannon, who will be the council-elect still until the term starts July 1st. We got Joe Passano. Passanello, sorry. I'm scrambling already. Tracy Lynn Pater. Chris Morris. Should have messed your name up, right? Bob Weir and Marchant Snyder. And, of course, me, Ken Lerson. To start this off, I guess we'll do it like any other official meeting. I'd like to do a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you guys. Okay, next thing on the list is, of course, I guess swearing in. We'll get that over, so any family members who just want to get this can get it and leave.
So where would you like it to take place? Up here in the middle for pictures, or
I'll stand behind you.
do you want it to be up here?
Yeah, I think that way you can get the flag better in the picture without.
If you five want to stay there, then maybe Bob and Marchant could come center here, and then all seven of you together.
Okay, and then you can cover my
No, I
shoulders.
don't know.
Yeah,
Is
that'd be
too
good.
wide?
That'll be okay. We have you all on camera.
Why you have to put the short guy in the front? That's not right.
Yeah. Bring the chief up and make sure.
Bring the chief.
Individually or as a group?
Group.
Group swearing in, and then we can do individual. A group swearing in, I think, is good.
Elections already.
The only thing that'll need to be done is the mayor, you're gonna have to do yours separate because it's a little different. So
Okay.
council will have one, and then mayor, you'll have your own separate one.
Would you like me out of the picture?
No.
Okay.
We shuffle right.
Steve Lemire, I'll do you last, okay?
Mhm.
All right, guys, this is really easy. You're just going to raise your right hand, and you're going to repeat after me, please. I
Aye.
state your name.
Tracy Lynn
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
To support the Constitution of the United States.
To support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge.
And I will faithfully and impartially discharge
All the duties incumbent upon me.
all the duties incumbent upon me
As a member of the Town Council.
as a member of the Town Council
For the Town of Haymarket.
for the Town of Haymarket.
According to the best of my abilities.
According to the best of my abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
So all the pictures are taken.
All right.
Retreat back to my chair.
Raise your right hand, repeat after me, sir. I
I,
state your name.
Ken Lerson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States
to solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as mayor
as mayor
of the town of Haymarket
for the town of Haymarket,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Your portrait, is that going to be with or without mask?
No, we're not in the group. I will pull my mask off when we social distance.
Just call for signature over.
Okay for pictures?
Yeah.
Can you sign it for me?
No, Susie, it's not his divorce papers. It's not his divorce papers.
I got it. Have a pen?
You sign yours, Ken? Pass it down.
Say this has got to go back to the clerk.
Yeah.
Chris? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I will. Did you get everybody? Joe's and Steve's? Yes. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Hi, guys. I guess we're all organized and ready. We'll start with the staff presentations.
All right. So basically what I wanted to do, you all have the job descriptions here in front of you, but I also wanted to have Emily, Roberto, myself, and Kim is actually, she phoned in from California to be here to just kind of let you guys know what else they do just on a daily basis and some of the things that they work on. So especially when we get down to the questions part, that way you guys can understand who to ask the questions for. Just some of the things that I wanted to go over is kind of set the precedent is one thing that I would like in the future and just working with this group is that if you all have a question, concern, something you want to bring up about individual staff, you just direct it to me. One of the reasons being is because as town manager, my job is to really direct staff to achieve town council's directives. So it may be that I direct them to do something a certain way for the majority of council. So if there's some issues or something, I would prefer having that conversation, council member and I, or if council decides to have one person come and speak to me, that's up to you. I'm fine with speaking with everybody. And this way, we can open that dialogue up. And then the only other thing is that one thing I'd like is in case you guys want, and I'm sure this is going to happen, individual council members want one item done or a task or something done, if it's going to take substantial staff time, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to respectfully just say, let's bring this to town council and have the discussion, and this way town council as a majority can direct it. So if you ask for something to be done, or can we look into this, or can we look into that, if I just ask if we bring it to town council, it's not out of disrespect, it's just the fact that I think it's going to take substantial staff time, and I'd like you all have the conversation, and then you direct me or staff to do whatever it is that we're talking about. So I'd just like to start off on that foot moving forward. And we'll go ahead and get into the staff presentations.
Congratulations, everyone. So I handed out right before the meeting a little memo that I prepared. This is just a list of our current and ongoing land use applications and other projects that I've been dealing with in planning and zoning. I tried to give just a brief synopsis at where the project currently stands. I'm happy to go through each one, or if you guys just want to take some time to digest it, maybe reach out. That works as well. So the front and then the top half of the back page, those are all of our ongoing land use projects. We are expecting a couple to come in mid-July with site plans, so that of course will be noticed when they come in. I will make the council aware of it, as well as working with Planning Commission for proper reviews. I've also listed here a couple town projects. These are not all currently happening. The only one that we currently have happening is our Jefferson Street sidewalk project. They are expecting that this should finish early August. They're making really good headway, especially this week. And then other projects that we have that we were looking at over the last few years and are more dependent on funding include things such as our site plan here at Town Hall, the Jefferson Street turn lane, park. We will, in the coming months, need to address some sidewalk maintenance. As we've seen this spring and summer, just walking up and down in the nicer weather, we are finally starting to see some significant areas that need attention, especially one in front of the museum that just came up. So those are some of the items there just to kind of give some thought towards. And then we have several in-house planning projects that I hope to get back to now that the COVID pandemic is kind of coming to, I wouldn't say a close, but things are opening back up so we can have our meetings again. Those would include the comprehensive plan update, looking at the ARB guidelines. This is something that the current ARB, we wanted to start on and get a good foot in the door doing this, but we haven't had a chance yet because we were working on the bylaws. They did just approve those. And then some other tasks and projects that I work on include the website, the newsletter, event planning, and then we're currently working with an unpaid intern to do some updates to our museum displays in hopes of being able to open that back up and have some more foot traffic in there. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or if you have any right now, I'm happy to answer.
Bob?
As I mentioned the other day, and it happened again coming in tonight, that we're having some sort of issue with the entrance, the drive entrance here, because for the second time in a row I bottomed out coming in, so I don't know what's going on out there, but it looks like it's starting to sink.
I'll put that in the crosswalk sidewalk maintenance area.
Anybody have any questions for Emily? We good? Thank you, Emily.
All right, Kim should be in from California, so there may be a couple second delay here. But Kim, you can go ahead.
Congratulations, Mayor and Council. I'm very looking forward to working with you all and getting you a agenda very early in the part of the week. I'm going to be working with Mr. Lurson particularly in getting the agenda out in a more timely manner for some transparency. Also, very early in the part of, hold on one second here. I'm going to be working with Mr. Larson particularly getting the agenda out in a more timely manner for. Okay, now that I've got my laptop, because I'm watching you also, so that's why I've got a little bit of a delay. I would like, if anybody has agenda items, of course, to give it to me in a more timely manner. And I think we were talking about maybe changing the work session schedule, so I need some direction there. One of the things I do come with almost 14 years of experience with past experience with being a town clerk. And one of the things I would like to change with your blessing is to have the minutes and the agenda packets running fiscally with you as opposed to what's currently being done now, which is in a calendar year. That's something we can talk more about after July 1. I do have the books ready to do that if you would like for me to switch over as of July 1 to do it fiscally rather than calendar. This helps because then the budget running fiscally and the audits running fiscally can all be put into the minute book so that it is running correspondence. Your budget would be your proposed budget would be in the front of the minute book. Your approved ending year budget would be in the back of the minute book so that each year you can see fiscally how things were going. So that's about all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'll greatly answer them now.
Anybody have any questions?
What I will do is I will hit on one topic that she had discussed about the work session meeting schedules changing a little bit after talking with Mayor Lurson, and he really wanted to get the communication out there and have the agendas out for a week. Something that I was looking at doing that I just want to see if you guys would be amenable to is if we adjusted the work session to the last Monday of the month. So what that would look like is we would get an agenda out the July 23rd or 24th, that Thursday or Friday, and then the following Monday, the 27th, we would have a discussion-only work session. So it would just be for discussion. And then if there's any updates or requested information that you all wanted us to add or more information in any way, shape, or form, we would add that information and put it on the 30th or 31st, that Thursday or Friday. And then we would have the regular meeting would be that following Monday on August 3rd. That way, after the discussion that happened that Monday, individuals would have one full week from the time you all have a discussion before an action is made. So that is just something that you don't have to decide that tonight. You know, think about it. That's something that I just came up with to allow more time for individuals to hear the discussion and then take action. So that is up to you all, and we can always discuss that at the July 6th meeting if you guys would like to do it that way.
You're talking about one work session a month?
Yes. So then instead of doing the 6 p.m. work session, we would just have, it would be the fourth Monday of the month, or the last Monday of the month. So that way you would just have two meetings instead of the two back-to-back. It'd just be 2 different weeks.
Yeah, that'll be good. Speaking of the week ahead of time, I guess our first meeting,
Yes.
that means the July 1st is the first time we could really get something together to come up with an agenda. I guess a discussion with the people here. Do you want to is that on the list?
I do have a list for items to discuss, the town council July agenda items.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to make sure that we would at least have some type of agenda out there for the first meeting, since we'd be going in kind of blind without any type of preparation.
Yes, sir. So I'll have some items to discuss after we get through the presentations and some other items. We can discuss that.
Okay. Bob?
2 things. First, for purposes of preparing the agenda for the July 6th meeting, I don't think there's anything that prevents us from going ahead and submitting stuff now. With respect to the work session and the regular meeting schedule, I think we're all on board with you. It's Amendment 1 in that packet I just gave you.
Okay.
So I don't think you're going to have an issue with that.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and on that note, also adjust the calendar appropriately so that we meet everything for next month.
Exactly. That's just, if we were doing that change to the schedule, that would need to be on the July 6th meeting so we could set it moving forward. So that will now, of course, be on the agenda as one of the items. All right, Roberto.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Congratulations. Look forward to working with y'all the next 2 years. My description, my job basically here in the town is to oversee the town financials, but I'm also the administrator of the benefits and also handle some of the HR matters. Meaning when we hire new hires, I make sure the paperwork is all there for them to complete. There's a few items that I'd like to make you aware of. Currently, right now, I'm in preparations to start working on the audit, the annual town audit. That usually starts around late May. In the first round, about August, we should be done before the auditors actually come in on site. Another item that I would like to inform you all is in the with the COVID pandemic. I know a lot of the taxes and revenues were looked on, and there was concern on how that was going to get affected. As of right now, I can tell you from seeing the numbers coming in that they are bouncing back. We did extend the business license applications this year, and less than 10% actually took advantage of it. Many of them made payments on time at the April 30th. Not many of them needed the assistance. Some just took advantage of the ability to hold on to their cash flow to the May 30th date. But once that day came, they did make their payments. As far as the meals tax, they had a month where they took a hit, the first initial month. But seeing now we have received May's, we're getting back on trend. Some that had the ability to already have the delivery and carry out services actually seem to be doing better. In the coming in July, we do have some payments we make up front loaded. Those are the debt service, and our health insurance is a monthly that gets collected throughout that month, but we pay the month in advance. As far as any of the reports or monthly reports you guys see, if there's a desire to see them differently or a discussion on it, I'm always available. Chris and I work together on many of the financial stuff, so believe me that we will go ahead and bring, if there's any concerns, be more than happy to bring it to the attention and hopefully get guidance from council as to how we'll go about it. If there's any questions, please feel free to hear.
Why is it always me? Two things. I was reading in the paper that the county has started dispersing their second round of COVID relief funds from the state. Have we heard anything from them with respect to round two and that second roughly $148,000 tranche, or have they not? I'm assuming they're going to have to push that through the board, and I would assume that's going to happen at their first meeting in July, which I believe is the 14th. But have we heard anything from them about what their intent is or what their schedule was to push that money down?
So we have yet to receive the first round. At the 29th, we will bring that to Town Council to approve the revenue and allocation of those funds and sign a certificate, basically, of agreement saying that we are going to abide by all the rules and regulations that are dictated with the CARES Act relief. So we have not heard about round two yet, but like I said, we haven't received round one yet, so that'll be something that I did discuss with the finance director today, and she will be ready to cut that check and send it to us as soon as we certify that. So on the 29th, once we send it out, it'll probably get mailed the 30th. So we'll probably get it the first or second week of July for the first round, and then I will touch base with her on the second round.
Part two, the front end costs. I know every year we've got some heavy front end loading on our budget. Do you have an estimate of what the cash, for lack of a better term, cash on hand will need to cover those front end loaded expenses in July or August?
I can actually work on that and have that to you guys by the end of the week, but I didn't bring it with me, but I could get that information for you.
Yeah, email's fine. I'm just curious what an approximate bottom line is for, well, for July, absolutely for July, but also possibly for the first 2 weeks of August.
As far as
For the one-time or heavy upfront costs, I don't much care about the monthly operational costs, just those things like the debt service and
yes,
that.
so July would definitely be the debt service and the health insurance, which is probably one of the other bigger ones. But I could get that to you all in an email.
Okay.
The amortization on that, how much more do we have to go on that debt? How many years?
Councilman Passanello, so on one loan will be paid off on August 1st, 2023. The second loan will be paid off on August 1st on 2023. The final loan will be paid off on August 1st, 2025. Right now, the debt service is of $754,300. 45,466 of it is interest. And this is information that I'll be happy to send it out to you if you will like it, and we can send it to the council.
Thank you.
Roberto, I had a question. You can hear me. So first of all, I apologize to everyone. My daughters were texting me that they got home, so I apologize for texting while we're here. So, one of the constituents I spoke with ahead of the election talked about some accounting of the maintenance and rental fees for each of the structures that we own. So I've not gotten necessarily the consensus of the council yet, but I think there's some interest in wanting to know the specific revenues and costs of each of the buildings so we can get a better accounting. Is that something we already do and just not consolidated in the budget, or is that something that's fairly easy to do?
That is something Councilman Morris has actually brought up in the past. That is something that I'd be more than happy to work on. It may take some time, but I can work on it, and we can get that to you guys. If that's what you guys choose and want to see, not a problem.
Sure. I'll wait till the first meeting where we officially give a directive, but I just didn't know if that was information we already had, or that's something separately you'd need a directive on to be able to do.
It's information I already have. It's just that having to take the time to actually break it down.
Yeah.
You know, but it's definitely doable. It may take some time, but definitely doable.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? More questions?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Congratulations for your election. Lieutenant Shaver is going to be passing out the job descriptions for the police chief, the police lieutenant, and the patrol officer. Good. Okay. I echo the town manager's opening statement, as well as I would like to have like one person that I would contact on a daily basis if need be. And I think after speaking with you earlier, Mayor, that may already be situated. Just let me know if that's still the case. This is someone that I would talk to about schedule changes, critical incidents, any emergencies in the town. In the past, I called the mayor directly, and then he directed me on what to do. Some things require action that I need to know the direction to take. Other things are just letting you know. Also in the past, I've done a group text with everybody, but again, you tell me how you want that to happen. If I just do one person and they group text everybody. In any type of situation that happens that you need to know about, I tell my guys the same thing. Is anytime something happens that's unusual for this town, I want to know, and then I'll let my designated person know, and then they can let you guys know as well. I will be contacting, I think, almost every neighborhood except for Villages of Haymarket is represented here. I usually try to contact a council member that lives in a neighborhood if something happens in your neighborhood, so that because I figure you're going to get questions so that you guys will know. I know Mr. Passanello, I've done that with you, and Mr. Morris. So I'll continue to do that. Like I said, almost every neighborhood is represented here. If you guys are okay with that, that's an immediate action that you guys would know about. Also, I request that if you have something that you want an officer to do, that you come to me. I don't want the officers to have 7 bosses. They have 2 bosses, Lieutenant Shaver being their direct, and then me being their second. Just something I just ask that you would do. If you have something you want them to do, please don't go to them. Please do a chain of command, as we call it in police work, and come to me. My door's always open. My phone is always on 24 hours a day. I'm always on call. Just to let you know, the projects that are coming up for us, we have a lot of new laws that are coming into effect July 1, so we'll be having a meeting with our officers and with our attorney. Mr. Olan back here represents us in all of our misdemeanor cases in court. Fantastic attorney. We really appreciate him. He usually comes at the beginning of every July 1 and gives us a rundown of all the new laws so our officers have a good understanding of what it is. One of the main things this year is going to be the decriminalization of marijuana, to where that's just a civil charge now of $25. That's a huge change. And texting and driving the hands-free thing. So, and that's, I was surprised that passed. It's a little controversial about it. Kind of gives another reason for an officer to pull you over, and that's kind of not where it's been going. So there's a lot of new laws, so we'll be doing that. Also, because of COVID, we've had to cancel all of our community policing events that we normally do, National Night Out, Breast Cancer Walk. You guys will be talking about Haymarket Day and the holiday event. So we're going to be working on new initiatives to be able to do our community policing without those events. So those something that we really need to put a lot of thought into to be able to come up with that. I am starting up a community advisory board. I've already contacted almost all of the presidents of the HOAs in the town, all of the faith leaders in the town, or the churches close in proximity to the town, several business leaders, and some community leaders / activists to sit on a group maybe once a quarter and just give us feedback from the community to the police department on how we could do better, what issues they're seeing, what can we do. Just trying to be proactive on things. I'll have more information for you on that on Monday. And then we're also working on the police reforms that are coming down from the Virginia legislature and the federal legislature. So what I've tried to do is get ahead of that, everything that has been mentioned, we're either doing or transitioning into. I'll have a lot more information for you on that on Monday night as well for the council meeting. So that's what we're working on now, and I'm open for any questions.
Chief, I did have a question. With the protests, the BLM protests, I'm glad to hear that the 2 went well without incident. Are you anticipating any future?
Yes, sir. On July 3rd, that's next Friday, we will have a, they're calling it a protest / forum. They're going to set up in the park and do a panel and answer the hard questions about race relations is how they've described it. They've got a Facebook page called A Group of Friends, and I think like 39 or 40 people have signed up, but the organizer, her name is JoJo Dominic. She said she's expecting like 500 people. So Emily is working with her on the logistics of parking and permits and porta potties and things like that. We don't expect that to be anything other than a conversation. Although, that being said, all the officers will be here to facilitate, safe crossing at the intersection in front of the park, the crosswalk in front of the park, and just making sure everything goes off without a hitch.
What time is it going to be?
It starts at 4:30 to 8 o'clock.
With us taking off July 1st, do you need any resources or direction from us or the mayor prior to that? Or
Not unless you have any for me. We'll handle it just like we handled the last two, which is we try to do no police lights. We try to step back, let everybody express their First Amendment rights the way that they are afforded to, and to just not be a huge police presence unless something happens.
If you have any need for volunteers, let us know.
So it's not my event.
Okay.
The
If you have any volunteers, let us know.
JoJo may need some, but
I think they have a website or a email address, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So you can always write to her, but it would be nice to get an itinerary of what the event's all about.
yeah, I'm not sure she's to that point yet, but sure, I'll reach out to her and get that.
Thank you.
Chris?
Chief, so you said it's a forum. Will you be participating?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so she has invited you to be there to answer questions that they may have.
So she's going to introduce me in the very beginning, and I'll welcome everybody to the town. They'll are going to ask me a couple questions about race relations in the town, whether we've had any shootings, whether we've had any complaints of racism. From what I understand, I'm not directly on the panel. I'm introducing everybody or welcoming everybody to the town, and I'll be available for questions if needed.
Okay.
I think the Prince William Assistant Police Chief now is on the panel
Okay.
as well. So we'll have a contingent of Prince William officers as well, I'm sure.
Okay.
If we do it like we have before, we have them stage out of sight and out of the town so that, because we don't want anyone to feel like they're being pressured.
And will you still have that contingency like what you had with the march? With
We have
state?
we have a full operations plan ready for everything, including a helicopter fly-in.
Good.
Anybody else? Questions? Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
All right, Martin, here, I'll give you this one.
Thank you. All right, much better. Okay. Congratulations to all of you who are elected or re-elected. I want to first apologize for my quarantine hair. I have an appointment, but those are hard to come by. So it doesn't normally look this bad. It's a lot shorter, too. I am Martin Krim. I have been practicing local government law since 1991 and actually did some prior work for the town of Haymarket in the 90s. My prior firm, Smith & Davenport, did some prosecutions as well as general civil work for the town back then. The current contract with my firm, Vanderpool, Frossack & Ashanian, dates from May of 2013. It was a result of a request for qualifications that the town put out and that we responded to and were selected from. I last did a presentation on legal issues for this town council in 2014, so it's high time that we did another one for you. I'm going to turn to the slide that talks about interacting with the town attorney. So most people don't deal with an attorney unless they have a criminal matter that they're handling for themselves or a family member, or a divorce or a will. So this is a little bit different than most folks experience. So let me just bear with me if I say things that are really obvious, but I'm just going to break it down a little bit. The attorney-client privilege is really the foundation for everything else that I give you, which is in terms of advice. The privilege protects the client's communications with the attorney. It is a protection against disclosure, even in court, even with a subpoena. And so it's very important to protect that, because that privilege can be lost. If the privilege is lost, then the information that you conveyed to me and my advice back to you can be revealed in a court proceeding, which might jeopardize you and prejudice your rights because the purpose of the communication is so that you can be candid with me and tell me exactly what it is, the issue that we are facing, so that I can give you my most candid advice on how to handle it. So to protect the attorney-client privilege, I make sure that we don't share information that I have received from you. I hold that confidential. I ask that you communicate to me in a way that's confidential. We use email. We use unencrypted email at this time, but we mark each email as confidential, not subject to the Freedom of Information Act, and not to be forwarded. What happens when you forward an email is that you break the chain. You break the protection of the attorney-client privilege because you've shared it with a third party who may not be within the scope of the protection. So if you're sharing it particularly to somebody who's not a town official, not a town employee, that jeopardizes the attorney-client privilege. And so I just want to, right off the bat, say, please don't forward emails. That's why my emails in the footer always say do not forward, because that has the potential of waiving the attorney-client privilege for the town as a whole. And I'm happy to talk about any of these topics in more detail, but just moving on to the next one, the authority to request work. The town council is the body that speaks on behalf of the town. If you tell me to work with a particular council member, then that's what I do. Otherwise, I typically work with the mayor and the manager. Your current policy says that communications with the attorney come from either the mayor or the manager or the vice mayor. So those are the people that are authorized to communicate with the attorney and to request that work be done by my office. Recipients of information, again, it's important that we recognize that I work for you all. I work for the people of the town indirectly through you all. And so it's important that we not share information that is supposed to be kept confidential with people that are outside the scope of the attorney-client privilege. Again, the authority lies with the council as a whole. What you tell me goes. I will advise you. I will tell you whether I think something is advisable or not. I will tell you what the risks are. Sometimes I'll give you a range of options, and I'll say, this one's the low risk, this one's the medium risk, this one's the high risk. And we'll get into what some of those risks are in a later slide. But I want to communicate to you that you all make the call, and then we carry it out as long as it is lawful, and we can do so ethically. The role of the mayor and the staff is as you all have defined. Unless you change the rules, what currently applies now is the mayor and the staff members communicate with the attorney with regard to the conduct of the town's business. And then you can change that at any time. But right now, I have a weekly conference call with the manager and sometimes the mayor on that call as well. And I find that's an efficient way to cover a lot of issues. Before I started doing weekly calls, I would get calls frequently through the week, and that just was adding up to more time. So I'm actually trying to be more efficient and save you all some time and money on my bill. Let me talk a little bit about ethical responsibilities, and that falls into two categories. My ethical responsibilities and the ethical responsibilities of attorneys who work for third parties. My ethical responsibilities and the responsibility, I just didn't introduce my, attorneys from my office, Brad Marshall and Olan Simmons from my office. We are all bound by the ethics rules of the Virginia State Bar, and we are obligated to put your interests first, to hold your communications confidential, and to act in the public interest. There are also specific ethical rules that apply to prosecution, and so that would be, those are important rules for us to follow as well. When an attorney acts as a prosecutor, he or she is not simply trying to win the case, but to see that substantial justice is done. And so that is an ethical rule that I'm happy to say that these two fine gentlemen behind me do an excellent job of upholding. With regard to other attorneys' ethical responsibilities, we actually just got a clarification from the Virginia State Bar, from the Virginia Supreme Court this year about what the responsibilities are for an attorney who's representing somebody else to contact one of you all as an individual member of council. And the rule, in a nutshell, is that, let's say somebody, let's be specific. Let's say somebody's got a project for a land use development, and they need the council's consent to a rezoning. And they call you up on the phone individually and talk to you about the merits of that particular rezoning. That is clearly legal now. It was not clearly legal before this before this opinion came down earlier this year. They can talk to you about the merits of that land use decision, that rezoning, and they don't need my permission to talk to you. I don't even have to know after the fact that they have talked to you. What they cannot do is to try to get you to say things that would be detrimental to the town, to make statements like, oh yeah, there's no way that we could turn you down because there's no basis in the record for us to do that. If they're trying to get you to say something like that, that's detrimental to the town, that would be unethical. So I would ask that you just be cautious when you talk to attorneys who are contacting you, who do not represent the town and do not have its best interests at heart, but are representing third parties. But you keep that in mind. You're perfectly welcome to talk to them. I would like to know after the fact, if you don't mind, tell me what, if anything came up, if there's a question that they had that I can maybe help you answer. But that's not a requirement, ethically or otherwise. Turning to the civil law services slide I've got here, these are the big categories of things that we do for the town. We do your planning, subdivision, and zoning enforcement, work very closely with Ms. Lockhart to accomplish that. We've got a lot of projects going on. It's a happening town, and so we are constantly doing either review of projects that are coming in, like the one across the street, or enforcement where there has been a zoning violation and we're trying to get some compliance. And that is the name of the game, is always compliance. We're not in this to get fines out of people. We're not in this to rack up our fees. We just want to get compliance from folks that are out of compliance currently with the town's ordinances. Under the heading of parliamentary procedure, per the town council policy, and of course you can always change this, I am your parliamentarian. The role of the parliamentarian is to advise. I do not rule. I do not make judgments. I advise the mayor or vice mayor, whoever's presiding over the meeting, as to what is the proper procedural fashion to move forward. This can be before the meeting starts or even during the meeting. So that is a role that I serve. I provide information about what parliamentary procedure requires, and that has 3 levels because there's a statutory level. State code provides for certain things that have to be done in a certain way. There's a local administrative level where you have adopted parliamentary rules of procedure. And then there's finally, when no other rule applies, you have Robert's Rules of Order, which is much hated but much beloved. It is what it is, and you live with it, and it starts to make sense after a while, I guarantee. We also work with you on Freedom of Information Act compliance. That has 2 aspects. The name of the law is actually very misleading. It's not actually information that's free. It should be called the Open Meetings and Access to Documents Law, because what it provides is that for open meetings of public bodies is a defined term, and those have to be advertised. You have to have minutes. You have to let people in. You have to let people video and take photographs of them. And so the open meetings law applies, and that's when you see us going into closed session, we're very carefully making sure that that motion to go into closed session complies with the statute, and it requires 3 things. It requires a citation to the exact portion of the statute you're going into, you have to have the reason for the meeting and for the closed session, and you have to say what the subject matter is. So, for example, you could go into closed session by a motion that says, I move to enter closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1 for the purpose of discussing personnel matters, specifically the contract of the town manager. That would be a lawful motion to enter closed session. The other part of the Freedom of Information Act is the open records portion of that. And so public records are all records having to do with public business, whether they're in your hands or the hands of third parties but belong to you or were prepared by you. And those documents are presumed to be open to public inspection, because the purpose of the law is the same as our purpose here today, which is to do the public's business. It's to do the public's business in the sunlight and make sure that everything that we do is for the public benefit. If it's not for the public benefit, we shouldn't be doing it. And so when you talk about access to records, the question comes up. Let's say somebody sends a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act FOIA, request for documents from the police department. You get that a lot. There's a specific statute that deals with police department records. We examine what the records are. Frequently, we have to look at them ourselves as your attorneys and determine whether there are any exemptions apply. And then we have to provide a response back to the person who's requesting it. And that response would be either, here are the records, or we're withholding some of the records and here's why, or we're withholding all the records and here's why, or we couldn't find any records. Those are the options that we have in terms of that. I could quibble with myself, but I'm going to resist that urge. With regard to procurement and contracts, you have a town council spending policy that is the only thing that applies currently. The town is too small for the Virginia Public Procurement Act to apply, except for some very minor things that apply to all towns regardless of size. But primarily, your spending policy is the control over how you spend money and how many bids you have to get for a project and that sort of thing. Again, so that's totally subject to your control. You can go anywhere from no controls to let's follow the VPPA, Virginia Public Procurement Act, as if it applied. That's up to you. And then finally on this page, ordinances, resolutions. We work with you on drafting those and make sure that we are compliant with the statutes that apply and make sure that we are accurately capturing what the council's intent is. So that comes up in a lot of contexts. Moving on now to the town prosecutions slide. And either of you gentlemen want to jump up and add something, please feel free. We do your misdemeanor and traffic infractions enforcement. So the town police department likes having us do this instead of having the Commonwealth Attorney's Office do it for a couple of reasons. And I don't want to put words in their mouth, but basically we are just doing them. We're not and Occoquan. We're not doing the whole county. And so we are able to focus on their needs. And we're available to them a good bit more than the Commonwealth Attorney's Office is. Not a knock on the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. They've just got the whole county to cover. So we're doing misdemeanor and traffic infractions, anything that's class 1, 2, 3, or 4 misdemeanor, or any traffic infraction. Our office prosecutes those in the General District Court, the Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court, and in the Circuit Court if it's on appeal. We handle all the related filings, motions, and discovery. Let me just say that the discovery has gotten to be a much bigger job than it used to be because of body-worn cameras. I think body-worn cameras are great, but they have, everywhere they've been implemented, they have increased the cost to the locality just due to the discovery compliance. And discovery is just the rule that under certain circumstances, the other side gets to see what documents and information you have. And so we have provide that information to them, to defense attorneys and people who are representing themselves in traffic and misdemeanor cases. We also act as your liaison with the court system, and we're available to the officers for legal advice when they need it on the spot, because you never know what kind of situation is going to come up for the first time. We also, as you heard from the chief, do provide periodic legal training for officers as needed, and that's coming up soon, right? Okay. Did I miss anything, guys? Okay, all right. Moving on then to areas of legal risk. I talked a little bit about risk before. Let me just dive into that. Primarily, we're talking about two kinds of risk here. One is monetary risk, where there's going to be expenses or damages awarded against the town so that you have to pay somebody money, or that there's a reputational hit. That's a big part of my job is actually trying to prevent reputational harm to the town. That is harder to measure than dollars and cents, but it is nevertheless very real. And so we are very concerned about both of those areas of legal risk and advise you frequently with regard to that. So what kind of areas generate most of those legal risks? You see them there. Human resources, zoning, police, eminent domain, and construction. So those are areas where you're going to have potential for legal risk. Human resources, anytime you fire somebody, you run the risk of a lawsuit. So we handle those issues. We've had folks leave here involuntarily in high-ranking positions, and so we are careful to smooth those transitions so that the town does not get sued. We have zoning as another issue where you do have some liability exposure, because if you deny a zoning approval and the property owner thinks, I should have gotten that and I've been damaged, there's often an incentive for them to file suit, because if they win, they get either some damages from you, or more likely approval to do what it is that they wanted to do on the property. So let me just dive into the zoning issue real quick on one issue that is a high-profile one, and that is proffers, monetary proffers in particular. So when somebody wants a permission through a rezoning to do something that is otherwise not allowed on their property, they may offer the town money as a result, as an incentive, essentially, for you all to approve the rezoning. Under federal and state law, those proffers have to be very carefully calibrated. And there's a set of fairly vague guidelines that we have that we are trying to follow to deal with proffers. But they're very dangerous and can result in liability exposure, inconvenience of lawsuits, and dealing with all of that mess. With regard to police, you've heard from the chief. We're obviously very concerned about making sure that our interactions with the public are respectful and peaceful, and as much as possible, and that we use force as a last resort. That's how you avoid police liability. We have been very well led here the last few years, and so we have had a good, I think, relationship with the community and a good reputation for the police department. And so we're hoping to maintain that. Just recently, because of the demonstrations and so on, the chief and I had a long talk about some of the issues that we need to address. One of those came down from our insurance company, the Virginia Risk, what does VRSA stand for? VRSA, Virginia Risk Sharing Association, on the duty to intervene. So there is a duty on a police officer's part to intervene if they see another police officer doing something that is excessive force or otherwise illegal. And so that is an issue that we're on top of right now, and in terms of our policies. In terms of eminent domain, we don't do a lot of that here. We have a couple of projects. We had a sidewalk project here, and there's actually some cases, one case hanging out from the improvements on Washington Street from many years ago. But eminent domain basically has unlimited upside liability. If you take property from somebody for public purposes, they can argue that it's worth whatever they want to argue it's worth. A property owner has the right to go into court and say, I think that my 5 square feet of property was worth $1 million. And they're allowed to say that in front of the jury. Now, whether the jury will buy that is another story. But there's unlimited upside liability, and that's why we try to resolve eminent domain cases at the earliest possible stage, preferably before we have to file suit. So you have to negotiate with folks, and you try to get a price that is reasonable in the minds of both the town and the property owner. And then finally, construction. Again, we haven't had a lot of construction cases here. We have had some construction matters, and again, you have unlimited upside liability on those because the contractor can issue change orders. They say, well, you asked me to do this, and I need a change order for that, and it's going to cost you X. Well, that results in cases that can exceed the amount of the original contract in the amount of the change order. So you have a great deal of liability exposure for construction cases. We're very careful, therefore, when we draft construction contracts to try to deal with some of the primary areas of construction liability. And it's just key that we get involved early in those. I've got a slide here on current legal issues, and then I'll turn it over to you for questions. We have ongoing compliance with the emergency orders. They were coming fast and furious for a while, not as often now, but we are dealing with all of those issues in terms of how we make sure that we're in compliance. We don't want to have any liability exposure for the town as a result of not following the governor's orders. Specifically under COVID-19 response, we're dealing with the CARES Act relief for businesses and local governments. That's starting to come in, and we're careful that that money be spent in a way that is consistent with the law. We have a proper amendment request that's coming up to a public hearing later this month, and that's going to be a matter that is going to occupy some of our time as we move forward. And then, as I mentioned already, the police use of force policy, which I think we're pretty much up to date on. So let me stop talking and see if you all have any questions.
Just, I just, one comment, Martin, in reference to the Supreme Court, their new ruling, the Virginia Supreme Court. We have no obligation whatsoever, correct? Somebody, an attorney calls us, or a builder calls us. We have no obligation to speak to them.
That is correct. You have no obligation to listen to anybody, but it's often beneficial for the town to have that communication be open, and so it's entirely up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Along those lines, Martin, something we talked about with the ethical responsibilities. Would you recommend, I guess, a disclosure policy as part of that?
There are some locations that do that disclosure policies just so that everybody on council knows who's talking to whom. And so, for example, Leesburg has a policy that says that if you've had a communication with a developer who has a special use permit or rezoning application pending before the council, that you will disclose that during council meeting. That's entirely up to you. Not everybody does that.
That's where I was feeling Councilman Shannon was, it's our choice whether to meet with them. If we do choose to meet with them, do we want to develop a policy that discloses that we've had those communications? Okay. Also, real quick, while I have the floor, who's our FOIA officer right now?
I was going to ask that. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kuhn is the FOIA officer. And do we have a separate FOIA officer for PD?
No, sir.
Okay.
Now, is the business manager gone? It's just the town manager now, or we? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It is now the manager? Okay. And I assume once we take office, we'll have more of a detailed briefing on any outstanding litigation or any sorts of things like that?
Yeah, obviously, if something's high priority for action, I will schedule that for a closed session as early as possible. Otherwise, I know you've got a lot on your plate, and maybe we should look at something a little bit further down the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Bob? I got a couple of them. With respect to the attorney communication policy, we were provided a copy of the rules, and I'm looking at 9.2, and I'm not seeing that the communication is limited to having to come through either the mayor or the town manager. And quite frankly, despite my well-known fiscal conservatism, I'm not in favor of that particular policy. I think that every member of this council should, when necessary, be able to contact you directly, either by phone or by email. I know that's not exactly the most cost-effective way to do it. However, given certain circumstances, my belief is that by having to essentially funnel it through the town manager or the mayor, it unnecessarily fetters members of councils, and in particular things like zoning cases, I'm not sure that really works to the benefit of the town or the individual council members. So, when we were considering proposed changes to the rules of procedure, I didn't touch 9.2 because that's not what it currently says. Is there a version that I'm not aware of?
Yes, sir. There's a attorney staff contact policy number POL 2014-0902-1. That is what I'm referring to.
Could you forward a copy of that to each of us, please? Second thing, does the town attorney maintain a copy of all executed and valid contracts held by the town?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. Will you provide us, I think this dovetails with what Marchant was saying earlier, can you provide us with a list of all outstanding civil cases and issues prior to July 1?
All civil cases, yes.
But I mean non-PD cases.
Right. Sure, they're not that many.
Okay. I would also like for you to forward us a copy of all existing NDAs.
All existing NDAs. Now, do you mean to include non-disparagement clauses in contracts for former employees, or just non-disclosure agreements that are not for employees?
Both.
Okay. How far back do you want me to go on the employment?
Well, since you haven't done this since 2014, let's start there.
Okay.
And last but not least, for my own benefit, there is still a distinction between proffers and development conditions and the ability to negotiate or not negotiate them, correct? So with development conditions with respect to, let's say, an SUP as opposed to a proffer amendment for a rezoning, we can still negotiate the development conditions for the SUP, but we should not do it for the proffers, or can't do it for the proffers.
The problem with the word negotiate is that it implies a quid pro quo, and what you're doing with both the proffers and the conditions for conditional use permit are imposing conditions that have a connection to the impacts of that land use decision and are roughly proportional to the size of those impacts.
Let me rephrase it then.
Yeah.
Can we still make suggestions or requests with respect to development conditions and not proffers?
I would ask that you check with me first, because
Not an issue.
it can hurt to ask now.
Okay.
Well, that distinguishes between residential and commercial, correct? Or both generally be cautious, but.
Both be cautious. So that there are state statutes dealing with specific remedies if you have violated the policy with regard to residential property, but there's still constitutional issues with requiring an unconstitutional condition for a commercial property. So even if the remedy might be different in court, i.e. what the plaintiff gets if they win, there's still a problem that you may have with an unconstitutional condition, one that doesn't have a connection or that is disproportionate to the impact.
Rational nexus.
Yeah, we would handle that at you would raise that as an issue at a council meeting, I would presume, when we're handling that particular thing.
Yes, sir.
I'm just talking on the front end.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
I have a question. So Chris, the town manager, excuse me, you're the FOIA officer?
Correct.
Okay, and so you're keeping track of all the requests. Are we required to keep a log?
Correct.
We are, and that's available to the public for viewing.
Should be on that monitor case right there.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I chime in on that for a second? Wasn't there a recent change to the statute that requires that log be posted electronically? Or is that something that comes into effect July 1?
Might be coming into effect July 1, but it's news to me if it is.
I thought it was last year, but I could be wrong. And maybe it was this year.
If you find it, let me know, please. Yeah. I know that there is a bill to require us to post all of our financial records online, and that was defeated, but I don't know about the log of all of our FOIA requests. I think I would have heard about that, but I don't know.
Good to know. Yep, I have another one. So when you were talking about ongoing compliance with COVID emergency orders, so we're in phase 2 right now. We're going to phase 3. What will be the impact here for meetings and for constituents and residents and what have you? How will that impact the ability to hold these meetings?
So the operation of local government has always been exempted from the executive orders dealing with the closures. So we have, out of an abundance of caution, limited the occupancy in this room and enforced social distancing and encouraged people to wear masks. But those are voluntary compliance issues with regard to these meetings. And similarly with the communications with the public when they come in, that's been, distance and so on. But, I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
You also addressed the Zoom meetings.
Oh, yeah, the Zoom meetings. So we had, early on in the pandemic, a couple of meetings that were entirely electronic, solely to address the emergency as permitted by Virginia Code. And then we've had additional meetings where people are participating by Zoom remote as members of council if they so choose. As again, it's permitted under your policy that you've adopted pursuant to the law that allows you to have people participate remotely an unlimited number of times if they have a concern about their health with regard to the pandemic.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit more about COYA? Conflict of interest. I think you kind of touched on it here when you were talking about disclosures and things of that nature, but I didn't see it as a separate item. And I remember being trained in 2014 on that. It was a separate item.
Yes, sir. We have, in fact, you're required to now to get a COYA training, and so we will provide that at some point. But the Conflicts of Interest Act is a highly technical act that deals with corruption, basically. It does so in a very difficult to explain in short declarative sentences way. So what happens is let me just give an example. Let's say that you have you work for a business that would be affected by actions of the council. Let's say they pay taxes to the town, and you are, as a council, considering raising or lowering those taxes. But you're raising or lowering those taxes on all the businesses that are affected by that tax. So you can make a disclosure and put a record, make a disclosure in writing, file it with the clerk, and that stays on record for 5 years as to your disclosure. In those situations, you have to look at how much money you're making from the business, what the nature of that relationship is. There's a very technical requirement for the disclosure form itself, so we work with council members when they have that. If something is your property alone, let's say you come in for a rezoning of your personal property, your real estate, the house that you live on, and you want that rezoned, then you're going to have to recuse yourself and not discuss that with any other member of council. That can get a little tricky because the temptation, of course, is to talk to folks. So the only thing I would say about that is if you think you might have a conflict of interest, please ask for an opinion early and give me all the facts so that I can advise you about that and we can all stay happy and healthy and out of trouble.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
So good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
We also have Terry Hope here, who's our IT contractor. Would you like a description from him as well? Or would you just like question and answer period?
Okay. Description? Yeah. Or not?
Terry, do you mind just stepping up? Let them know what you do for the town.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Terry Hope. I'm the IT contractor for both the police department and the town offices. Basically, I do any of the IT work that is needed to just keep the offices running. I work with Chris on new projects, proposed budget items, purchases, those sorts of things. I maintain the antivirus and the security for both offices' firewalls, and that's pretty much in a nutshell.
So as far as the security of the building, is that you, Chris? Changing the locks and all, or is that the IT?
Roberto addresses that with the company. So we'll put a request in and they'll provide us.
I mean, I can speak. It's an automated system. It's an automated system. So come July 1st, it automatically requires me to go ahead and initiate a new change for new codes and everything, which I would be able to share with the team here. So every year, it's automated, automatically cuts off the access codes to the building. So then it's forced to.
And does it do it every so often during the,
I could set it up that way. I could set it up that way if we wanted to.
That's something. Something we can talk about, I guess. So I have a concern. I haven't been able to see the contract. Do you have a copy of your contract, the IT contract?
I've brought a copy with me for Chris, but I don't have multiple copies. I'll give it to Chris and let him distribute it.
Excellent, thank you.
So your IT services are mainly with the hardware and computing here. Do you deal with the cloud services, or?
Well, yeah, so Microsoft Office, the internet access, the firewalls protecting the offices from external entry from the firewall or from the internet. I've helped them with the contracts on the software, Office automation software, basic stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. But like file storage, are you responsible for the files that we have stored in the sense of, how long it's going to all be retained if we lose the contract or any of that stuff? Or do we have a separate contract with, cloud providers or whatever? I'm assuming they're through you, right?
I'm not aware of any cloud storage. All of the office storage is local. Okay.
That's on the cloud. Yes, sir, all of our videos and our reports are on the cloud.
Like body cams and?
Yes, sir. It's per contract, and I can provide you with any of those contracts. Cal should have a copy of them.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
Sir, are you saying that all our backup is held here on location? When you said locally, you meant here.
The day-to-day used files are on a local system down here. There are nightly backups that are performed off-site, and those are done. Both Chris and I have access to the console to be able to do that.
So that's different. You're saying there's nightly backups, but it's held off-site.
Yes, the nightly backups are held off-site, but the active files that people use day-to-day are local only.
And the backups are held in the cloud or in a server, physical server off-site?
I believe it is a cloud that is encrypted.
Okay. If you may, I understand that there are global users on the account.
On which account?
On our IT, who have access to our IT information.
Well, we have a global administrative account on every machine that is here, so that if we need to do updates or maintenance, we can log in and be able to do that without the individual user having to be right there.
Let me ask it clearly.
Okay.
Who has access to view my emails on my town email?
Without anybody giving me any special permission, you are the only one that has access to look at that. Technically, the administrator of the account does, and Chris and I are two of the ones that have access to that right now, and that is going to be modified as soon as all of the legal turnover occurs.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you clearly, unless you get directive, no one can read my email, my personal email.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah. So, if a FOIA request is filed, that's technically not true, because the administrator, in terms of the town manager, could access those files, those email accounts, to comport with the requirements under FOIA, correct?
If I was given instructions that there was a FOIA request, then there is a secure method of doing that query.
Who currently holds global privileges as an administrator? I'm just curious. How many people have it?
Global access, I believe there are 3 of us.
I just asked and you said 2.
Well,
And-
the previous mayor,
Well,
Chris,
he's
and
still the
I.
current. He's still the current. He's the current mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then once the legal changeover happens, that will be changed.
So that's what I was going to. Thank you for clarifying it, Bob, and speaking in English. So there are 3 global users. There are 3 global users on the account that has access to personal information or my email account.
No, they cannot. You would have to go through the FOIA query in order to look stuff up. I, as the administrator, cannot go into your mailbox directly without you granting me permission. But for legal purposes, Microsoft Office has set up a e-discovery system where we can put in requirement or requests for, like say if we want to search for a keyword in anybody's mailbox in a date range, we submit that to Microsoft, they run it, and then we get a report back. We do not have direct access into your email.
Okay, that raises another question. So, I'm just going down a rabbit hole here that I probably shouldn't, but if somebody makes that query to Microsoft and a report is generated by Microsoft, who's delivered a copy of that report and how?
It is one of those global account.
But it would only go to that global account.
It would go back to the
requester.
To the console that the 3 of us have access to in order to be able to access that.
Okay. And just one other thing to set my mind at ease. I'm assuming that the town's global access does not have access to the PD and vice versa, or am I wrong?
It is all one email domain, so it is all one email account.
Okay. I'm not real comfortable with.
So, I was made the global admin today, but that is something that after I noticed and realized, what we may want to go into is potentially having PD set up on their own 365. So this way, PD, it would be like town of haymarketpd.org or something similar to that. So that way, chief would have global access for all of his officers, and it would be completely separate from admin. But that's something that we were working on today at 4 o'clock. So that just
Work faster.
So that is something that actually, once we start looking at the global users for Office 365, that's something that I think we're going to have to investigate to try and keep them separate. And Chief will be able to see his officers, and then I'll be able to see the admin side for those requests. So.
Without objection, I'd like that as an agenda item for the 6th.
So noted.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Terry.
You.
I think we should revisit the physical security aspect once we get into.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I'm assuming we're going on to the town project updates now?
Yes, sir. So I know that Emily has provided you all with that pretty thorough list of all the residential, commercial projects that are going on, as well as some of the town projects that we have. Really, that's just something that we wanted to bring to your attention, touch base so you all know. we have more time to get more in-depth with it, because really the only one that is active and moving forward for the town side is the Jefferson Street pedestrian sidewalk. Everything else has been stalled, for lack of a better term. So all of this can be discussed at a later time. It just depends on how you all want to prioritize it. So I think that really the report that she provided, if you all want to review it, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and just think about prioritizing those things. And of course, there are some projects that are smaller than others. So museum caboose usage for, tourists. The farmers market is another one where there's been an opportunity that has arisen, so that may be something we can talk about for the town events. I know gateway signs, we have had the design done. We've yet to do the production and those items, so it really just depends on council dictating what those priorities are as to when we discuss them. But we really just wanted to let you guys know what all the irons that are in the fire, and then you guys can pick and choose which one we really start diving into.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would really like for any contracts that have been discussed concerning any of these hot items that should be forwarded to us so we can review it and then prioritize it just as we go into the July season. So if there are any contracts that has been signed, just for us to be aware of it leading.
Does this include, you're talking about tenants as well as construction, or just?
I would say just construction, unless anyone else has any other areas to add. If I can just sidetrack a little bit, Emily, are there any updates on that open land on Hunting Path and any submittals? To the right, exiting.
Yes. So an update on that recently sold to an in-town business looking to expand their yoga studio. They've not submitted any plans yet. They bought right in the middle of COVID, so I'm hoping everything is still positive for them.
Yeah.
But that is where they are currently hoping to expand. They purchased the land. So I will let everybody know as soon as they put their site plan in.
If you remember, it was probably 5-6 years ago when I started asking for the previous owners to clean up that back lot leading onto Long Street Commons. I met with the owners last week. They were doing an open air yoga class. I didn't participate, just so you guys know. But I just asked them kindly if that would be a good selling point, and they had it cleaned up. You guys should drive by there. It's just amazing what they've done to the place. So.
Thank you.
Can we talk about the elephant in the room across the way? Can you just give us a little bit more what's going on with the hotel?
Yes. So Haymarket Hotel has a signed site plan. We are working through the final documents there with the deed easements, the plat, and then the bonding documents for those to all be submitted and officially accepted by the town. They are down at the building department finalizing everything with Prince William County Building Department to receive their permits. Once they have those and the project's bonded, we will issue our grading permit. At that point, work can begin on the site. We do have Christopher Consultants. That is our contracted engineers firm. Her firm does all of our E&S inspections for us. So they will start that as well. But that's where we're currently at. And Chris can talk more to the MOU, right? Yeah, so he can talk more about the MOU. But that's where we stand with the planning and zoning aspect of it.
Okay, and have they shared a schedule?
They have not shared a schedule yet. They did tell me that as soon as they get on to, sending in the approved documents, that they will set up a pre-construction meeting with us. They will include us to meet their construction team, I believe is coming up from Norfolk. So they'll put us in direct contact so that we always have a contact on site there should any issues arise. So I'm expecting that'll be later this summer. And as soon as we have a date for that, I'm happy to let council know. So if any of you are interested, we can share that.
Thank you.
And this was slowed down because of the COVID. because of the virus somewhat, from what they
Somewhat.
told us before. What about Food Line? Any news? What's going in there?
The prospective buyer backed out, and so right now they don't have anything currently that they've brought to the town.
I'd like to just go back for a second on the hotel for the MOU. Can we get, when you put together the contracts, can we get a copy of that as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Curiosity. We're now almost into July, and time's burning. And I have a suspicion that they may not get even to the grading process before winter is upon us. Is there any provision in place for either a long-term delay in their construction or them simply going away and a requirement for landscaping of that parcel if it remains in its current state?
We'll have to review that.
At this time, no. There's no provision of that they would need to landscape. About every 12 days, we touch base on the height of the grass over there, and they are having to be continuously reminded to cut the grass. So I do see if they don't go to construction soon, it will become an outstanding issue.
On that note, we have similar parcels in town. Are we having any issues with other maintenance of
I have one
vacant parcels? I'm thinking of the one that I can see from my house.
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up. I did not put that in here. I've reached out to them. We're having what I would call a healthy discussion on the difference of our ordinance versus other localities, and that we require more than 10 feet from the sidewalk to be cut. So I am expecting within the week or early next week, the entire parcel will be mowed and maintained better.
I was actually thinking of the one behind, the one
different-
between St. Paul and Jefferson Street, but that's okay.
Okay.
Well, the owner died
Yes.
recently, and I'm just
Yes.
curious how that's working out.
So that one, I do not currently have any open discussions with that owner.
So nobody's complained?
No.
That's good,
I
that's
will
even better.
say- I will say there's one other that I would like to mention, the Pardo House, that is at 14881 Washington Street. This is a project I've been keeping the current sitting council up to date on. I have been in discussions with this property owner since October, November to address the matter. The ARB tasked me with reaching out. Once COVID hit, I tried to work with the property owner in a friendly manner and be understanding. She had till June 17th to take action on the property. No action was taken. I'm currently working on our blight ordinance letter that will be going out. However, I will need the help of council to discuss a plan and any funding that we can put towards, whether it be, the painting of the structure, securing it, finally closing that window, and or taking all the plastic down and making sure it's secure. So that is something that I would like to bring up to the council very quickly, just so that we can stay on top of this one. It has been going on for quite some time, and I'd like to not lose traction on it.
So you're expecting that to be an action item, one of the first things we need to work on?
I would like that if that's possible, yes.
That's what I was actually going to ask council. Without objection, I would like Emily to start working on that plan so that you all will have something in front of you. So instead of starting from scratch July 6th, we can have the zoning administrator's basic recommendation for that plan, and then if you all want to tweak it, we can do that as well. And then just to Councilman Weir's point, with some of those projects like that that are prolonged, long-term issues, whether it's grass or things like that, there's a system in place which will go through the system, and then if it comes down to us having to cut the grass and then get reimbursed later, I'm sure the town attorney, I know, has worked on similar things like that for, individuals that live out of the area, out of the country, and they pay at the end of the year whatever that, landscaping fee is. So there's several ways we can address that.
Speaking of landscaping, could you forward a copy of the landscaping contract too while I'm thinking about it?
Just to let you all know, we have actually obtained one new one recently, and we had requested our current contractor submit a second one. So we will actually have 2 contracts to send to you to update the current contract. But I'll send you the original with the 2 updates as well.
I just wanted to add, Emily, the monthly updates that you provide to council, does it have these issues that you just mentioned on it?
It does. I will say that some months I have more time to get out and do more zoning violation letters and stay on top of the maintenance of certain properties. So that's usually at the very bottom. However, I keep any open applications like this. I try to keep an open dialogue, and I just provide monthly updates if anything's changed. So, and I'm open to any ideas or thoughts on that report. If there's a better way that you guys would like to receive the information, or if you would like to see certain things in there, please feel free to let me know.
I personally think your report is fine. It's just that even if there's a month where there's nothing more to add, as long as it's still there on your report.
Yes.
You know, because there are things that will pop up, especially with this house and the painting of the roof, and just if it's still there on the report, even if there's nothing to report. But in my opinion, it's fine.
Okay.
Did you have something, Marshawn?
You may have already been planning to talk about this. McDonald's, we had a deadline of June 30th. Is that something we need to address with you as well?
I'm hoping it happens, but I think, yes, it will be something that needs to be addressed. So I will speak with Chris and Martin and let them know where I'm at on that. I have sent the letters out. I've not had any correspondence back. They have been sent via snail mail and electronic, and we know that the electronic was received, so we don't currently have any response to it. I'm not expecting that it'll be closed come next Tuesday, so we'll discuss our next course of action.
Does our landscaping contract also include the flags and the banners and everything else that go on the light poles? Or
I would say yes and no. So no, because we make a special call and that's an additional charge, but that same company does take care of it for us. So what you see up right now, that'll stay until right after 4th of July. Then we call them and ask them to put up the next set of banners. So we do it on an as-need scheduling basis.
And I'm assuming we have some type of typical calendar of how we swap out the things?
Correct. We usually follow the seasons. We have 4 seasonal banners that we put up, and then we put the flags and the veteran banners up right around the big national holidays. July 4th, Memorial Day and July 4th, they'll stay up for that longer period of time. And then we come back in and we put up usually the flags for 9/11, as well as right there at Veterans Day, we have the banners and the flags back up.
I just remember back in 2014, they were changed, I think, 12 times per year, and then that got reduced drastically.
Yes, we try to keep the cost down on that. So, for example, around Veterans Day, we'll have them come put the veteran banners up and the flags, and then we won't change those out until after Thanksgiving, and that's when we'll put up our holiday themed stuff so that we can kind of cut down there on 2 extra trips. And it takes them a good amount of time. They do it with like a 14-foot ladder. They don't have a boom truck or anything, and so they walk each pole and they do it by hand, usually 2 of them, so it takes some time. Any other project questions? So, town events. I will say this one, we've been getting... Yeah. We've been getting a lot of questions. By now, I would have had Haymarket Day applications about 75% accepted and paid. We would have started even laying out a lot of the vendors. I've not had as many people asking, but this week I've seen a big push. I'll be honest and very candid with you guys. I have concerns that this event, if we can't make it everything it's always been, I don't want it to be a poor reflection of our town. I'm also very concerned about how many people are there and how can we possibly socially distance and how can we make sure that nobody is, at risk. I've thought a lot about it, except for requiring certain, everybody would have to wear a mask. We limit the number of participants. We space out the vendors, only one person per tent. You have to wait to visit each tent. You have to stand 6 feet apart. I see it as a very big obstacle. If it is one that you guys wish to take on, I'm right there with you. We'll do it. We'll find a way. But at this point, I feel that we would significantly need to shrink the event and make it smaller if that's something that is of interest. I think a second option, as much as I really dislike saying this, is postponing for 1 year. And we don't take that risk. We don't put any of our citizens or our community into jeopardy. And we come back 2021 and we make Haymarket Day the best it's ever been. That is where my recommendation is standing. I just feel it's the safer option for our citizens and our community.
I'll just, the comment I'll make, we're not going to be able to enforce social distancing.
Right.
Can't do it. Absolutely no way.
And I just want to piggyback on what Emily said. Just looking from a financial standpoint, a good portion of the event is covered by sponsorships, which it's now we're in a condensed period.
Quick, yes, sir. Just to give you the financials of last year, for an example, for Haymarket Day, we brought in around $54,000. That pays for all of Haymarket Day. That pays for, that's the vendor money that's collected, just vendors. That pays for all of our contracts. It pays for anything special we want to do, the music, the bands, the DJ, and then sponsorships brought in, I believe it was $27,000 last year. So totaling, we were right around 80. That money then goes to pay for all of our other events. So the events are standalone, sponsors and vendors pay for it. This year, we've not received but 2 sponsors, and for those sponsors, I would like to kind of credit their money forward. I want to give them that for next year, not make them pay that, but honor them that way. But we did discuss with the current council of moving what's about $17,000 that was left over from this year, where I couldn't have a spring community picnic, to next year, next fiscal year. So that still puts us behind, though, in fees. I also don't think that for Haymarket Day, asking a business that's maybe been closed for 2 months to the public, I don't think it's right to ask them to pay $425. I think this is our opportunity if we were to have the event. That's
$425 for what?
for a commercial vendor fee that's not located in the town. In-town businesses are $100, crafters are $125, nonprofits are $150, novelty food, a single food, is $225, and anybody else is $425. And food trucks, depending on size, could be $625.
No, is there a way to break that down by vendor? Like your percentage proportions?
Of how many we have that are commercial in town? Yes, I would have to look at our numbers from last year, but last year I can say we did restrict nonprofits to under 30. We had a couple at the end that we were really close on our numbers, so maybe we had 35. Crafters last year, we had around, I want to say 65-ish, and then everybody else, for the most part, lumped into what I call a commercial vendor fee, and we had 13 food vendors total. And we had 220 booths sold. I usually stop it right around 200, 220, so we can fit them all on the street.
Is this going to be an agenda item? Or
Put your hand up and you'll be recognized.
Yeah.
no?
All right? Put your hand up and you'll be recognized.
I'm a grown up. I'll speak
Thank you
up.
thank you for the suggestions that you've given us. Is July 6th the deadline that you would want to give council?
Yes, I can wait till then. Normally I do have contracts signed by this point, I will say, but a lot of our vendors we use are very local, and they want to do Haymarket Day, they want to be here, so they're kind of holding the date for us. So I don't worry about that very much. I just worry about filling out the booth spaces and then having the participants come.
And if
And
it-
keeping
How
them
about
safe.
the trash and
Trash,
contracts, all of those? Would
we
those
do the
be
trash.
pressing it, or?
We're the trash team. No, we use volunteers for trash. So last year, we actually worked with one of the local Boy Scout troops, and we made a donation to them for summer camp, and they actually did a phenomenal job and went around and picked up trash. So things like that I would hope to still do with volunteers. We have the porta potty contract. Again, he's local. Our sound guy, he does both of our stages, very local. We use Prince William County show bus for one of the stages. The other is a big rental company. But again, I think that's where we would need to consolidate down to one stage. I don't know if the brewery that we've used the last 2 years is interested. I don't know how they've been affected by this pandemic. Normally, they do pay us a sponsorship to be here that day and set up a beer garden. So we'll see how that works. They provide all their own security, things like that. But on the July 6th, once you guys give us the say, we'll start.
Continue down the line.
I was hoping we would do this in July, but I'm given how pressed for time we are, I guess we should start the discussion now. We don't know what phase we're going to be in. We don't know what the restrictions are going to be. We can guess that at worst, as things stand right now, we're going to be at phase 3, if not phase 4, or whatever comes after phase 4, and I'm not even sure what that is. I can understand wanting to postpone it a year. And in an ideal world, that might actually make the most sense. But we've got a lot of town businesses that are hurting as a result of COVID. And I do think we need to do something to put a focus back on those.
So I had an idea. We also had an August concert scheduled. That is something we started last year, and it went off awesome. I mean, it was one of our best events we've had at the park. It was full. We had great turnout. So with that, do we split some of the money and offer 2 concerts? Do we really focus on bringing, if we have vendors there, get our town businesses involved, get those restaurants, get those retail people out there, and give them that opportunity, and still have an event of sorts to bring out the community?
I actually had a different thought. Contrary to standard belief, in this case, smaller might actually be better. If you look back historically at Haymarket Day and the manner in which it's grown over the last 18 years, 20 years, the exigencies, I can't even say the word, the circumstances brought about by COVID actually offer us an opportunity. The most frequent criticism I have heard with respect to Haymarket Day in recent years is it's almost like Christmas. It's over-commercialized. It's too crowded. There's too many, take your pick, insurance agents, real estate companies, gutter cleaners, and there has been a well-voiced opinion that they would like to see, and this is the actual residents who don't come anymore but stay in their yards. They come up for the parade and then they go home. But what I'm hearing is they want a renewed emphasis on the crafters, and I know that's difficult given how that's sort of a dying breed in many respects, and an increased opportunity for different food options. That gets a little hairy given the existence of the number of restaurants in town. So what do you do to accommodate the restaurants in town? Do we draw a circle on a map and say that if you're not within this map, you can't have we're not going to afford you the opportunity for a booth this year just because we simply won't have enough. If we stretch it out, if we make better use of the park space I always thought the park space was probably the best space for the crafters, so the old ladies could wander from craft tent to craft tent without getting run over by somebody's German Shepherd, like mine. And, you know, do the food trucks and the other stuff on the street, spread them out a little more instead of, you know, lining them up right next to each other, you know, use every other space. It will afford the opportunity for it to be less congested from a commercial and a vendor standpoint. When you do that, you will necessarily reduce the crowd because those people associated with those, whatever percentage of booths that aren't there aren't going to show up. And it will afford the crowds more space to operate. Is it worth the risk? My personal view, yeah. Do we need to look at it as a money-making venture? Do we need to look at it as the funding source for all of the other town events for the rest of the year? I don't know that that particular dynamic holds forth anymore. You know, there are other things that, you know, we're probably facing some tough fiscal times, but if we don't have Haymarket Day, what is the loss? My sense is to go on with it in a reduced format, and perhaps the reduced format might be a little more family friendly. But I'd like to talk, you know, in the future, I'd like to do other things too. I mean, you're mentioning this August thing. I mean, I can remember when we used to have the summer concert series. We used to have them on the park property, and those used to be very heavily attended, depending on who was booked as the band. And I'd rather see us go back towards that, where you're eating the cost of a band, but you're providing the entertainment for the community, and it's not necessarily something that's going to draw in a large crowd from well outside of Haymarket, but will, you know, bring everybody that's close in. It's my thoughts.
I will add to that, we have heard that same recommendation from our citizens, that they want to see those concerts again in the park, especially now that there's a place the kids can go play and, you know, bring a food truck or something in. But we have heard that a lot the past year and a half.
I guess the first question is, can we even get insurance for it? I know the American Wartime Museum just canceled their August event because they can't get insurance for it. So I know we have some general insurance for the town facilities, but can we even get coverage for that event?
So that's another point of conversation too, that by having this event, what's the liability to the town? Waiting on the direction on the future, on you guys. That's something I do want to go out and reach out to our Versa, our reps, because like you said, many other localities are canceling for that very reason, to avoid, you know, the risk. So that is something that I would try to find out as much information as I can and pass it along to you guys.
If we can't, question, Marshawn, that in itself could lead us in the direction that we need to go.
Right.
Because
First tier issue. If we're not insured, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Because currently, when we do have these events, though we do ask businesses and vendors to go ahead and submit that they're insured. Ultimately, it falls on the town as it's a town event. So far, our premiums have not increased due to it because we haven't had an incident, you know. But that's another question that I will reach out to our representatives to see what the risk is or what the cost, or if they were even insured.
Covered by our general liability rider, I don't know.
Right, because there's many currently some of the community pools. A reason why they're not opening as well is because they don't want to take that liability. COVID isn't covered, so that is something that would help us make this decision, or council make the decision.
I think the Councilman Shannon's point, it's going to be hard to enforce, and I don't know that the police force would really want to be in the role of having to do that. So, yeah. So I think that for those sort of logistics things, I would agree at a retracted event, if we're going to go that direction, makes sense. Having it as an agenda item next month, I think we should get some town input on it and have them come in and both businesses and residents.
Especially
businesses on, you know, is it worth it? I think one of the things we discussed is not only them not putting revenues and the fees to get involved, but is it really worth their time, you know, to not have the same attendance that they had before, and then not make it a successful event, as Emily said. So if we can first kind of hit that first logistics issue, and then go from there, an alternative event at the park where we can reasonably physically distance, I think that makes sense. But that would be my comments on the thing on the day.
Okay, and I'll work with Roberto to get the answers on the insurance. We'll reach out and try to have that for July 6th.
Yeah.
The only point what I would agree is on the uncertainty of what might happen. You know, we're going to see another surge in the fall. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have until the 6th. You have a little bit of time to gather some more information, and that's going to be important to the decision. But to Bob's point, if we can't get insurance, I mean, it's over. Not that we want to do that.
End of discussion.
End of discussion. But if you could lay something out for that discussion on the 6th so we can make an informed decision, that would be great. I'm not good at abstract. I like to see things on paper myself. And the other thing I was thinking with the hotel and the MOU, which I haven't seen yet, you know, thinking about reimagining Haymarket Day sometime down the future. I mean, maybe downsize it, or maybe there's an opportunity to leverage that relationship with the tourism aspect. I'm not sure what the contract says, but maybe we can leverage with the hotel when it does come here and reimagine the whole Haymarket Day utilizing their expertise as well. So, just a thought.
All right, last item we have, oh, you got one more question?
Next agenda item.
Okay, I was going to say is the July agenda items. As of right now, I have the separate PD admin emails, the event schedules on Haymarket Day, and then the plan that Emily will have for the zoning violation. Those are the three items I have now. And then I'll just run through some recommendations I have that I'd really like us to address first, and then some other ones that I've discussed. One thing that we need to discuss, the current council, they had a public body meeting payments. They put those on hold until June 30th. So if you all want to continue that, that is something that you all will need to make the motion or have the discussion on the July 6th meeting. If you don't want to discuss it, that's fine. What will happen is the public bodies will start getting paid again as of July 1.
Chris.
Yes, sir.
All public bodies aren't getting paid?
Correct.
We're not. We all waived the rest of this year.
So then come July 1, Planning Commission, ARB, and Town Council all will start getting paid again unless you all take action on that first meeting. So if you don't take action, the pay will begin. If you want to forfeit, we can move forward with that. Another item we need to address is ARB and Planning Commission appointments. As of July 1, to my knowledge, the only member of the ARB that will be active is going to be the Town Council liaison, because everybody else's terms are either expired or they've indicated that once it expires, they're not going to be able to come back. So that's one thing for ARB, and Planning Commission has got some holes as well. Those of you know, Nick Polari had left because he started his first day in South Korea today, so he's over there, and Ms. Pearl Carter Bush did not anticipate what the Planning Commission necessarily entailed, so she has resigned as of June 30th, so July 1, her position will be open as well.
Do we have anybody in the pipeline?
We have just received 2 applications for Planning Commission and 2 for ARB this afternoon.
And who's going to take action on those?
We do have an appointment section for the Town Council meeting on the 29th that was requested. So I do think some of those positions will be filled. However, the positions that expire on June 30th, 2020 that don't plan to continue, that is going to be up for you all to choose, as well as Mayor and Councilman Councilman Schneider. He will have to resign from the ARB from that one position, and then whoever the ARB liaison will take that liaison space, so that will open up his space. So that's something that needs to be addressed. I already had the event schedule on Haymarket Day as something that needs to be addressed, but we've verified that already. And then another item that I would like you all to at least think about, especially when you get the agendas, is the administrative staff and chief reports. Just how it's done, how it's reported, the information that's provided. For example, I do weekly reports on Fridays, which starting this Friday, I'll go ahead and add you all as well, so you can get an idea of what it is. Those reports are also what is provided in the town council agenda packet, so you've seen the reports. It's just they get it that every Friday. That report is what's provided. If you want something different, we serve at the pleasure, so you all tell us what information you want, when you want it, and that's what we'll provide. And I know Chief and I had discussed this, so I know that he wants the same directive. If you guys want some change or something different, let him know, and he's more than happy to change it.
Sorry to interrupt. So 4 of us have emails already. What about the 3 of us?
I will be providing you those emails. I can actually provide them to you tonight or tomorrow if you want. I got the email set up and I have the passwords available as well. So I'll send both of those, and then I'll just ask that you change the password once you log in. All right. And then we have one detail. It's a Laney detail with an overtime assignment, which we can get into on the 6th, but it is something that we'll need directive from you all on the 6th. And then we have Prince William County resolution for the Route 15 and railroad tracks. They've got an anticipated bridge over top of it. 2 years ago, we had a very similar resolution, if not the same resolution, that they're basically asking for our support again, which that's something they need action sooner rather than later. So that's why we'd like to put it on that 6th meeting.
Are they putting that into their plan, or is that part of the state plan?
They're putting it in to get funding as part of their plan. I can also have, 2 years ago, we had somebody come out from the county and give a little presentation on it. I'm more than happy to ask them to come back as well, if that's of interest.
Sure, I'd love to see Rick Canizales come in here.
Well, I tell you
Rick
what, I'm.
hasn't come yet. Usually Paolo comes.
Ask for Rick personally.
You know, that'll be a good thing. If you're talking about a flyover, that would certainly help us down the road if we want to continue with the quiet zone, because that will help in our calculations. So not sure what the date on that would be in the scheduling. This is just so early, it'd probably take a number of years before they even get the funding, I would think.
No, I thought the funding was being fast-tracked for that because it was made a priority because of its congestion relief potential, if I remember correctly. I think it's actually made, was it NVTA's scale or was it Smart Scale that it scored well on? I don't know. It was one of the two.
I don't think it did well in Smart Scale.
It did one, and then perhaps it was strictly NVTA funding then.
Maybe. Okay. Do we, okay. That would be helpful, without a doubt.
Okay, so then we'll go ahead and we'll reach out to them and see if they can make it to the July 6th meeting. And then some of the other things that don't necessarily, they're not a priority, but I do want on the front burner so that you all are thinking about it and really can dictate when we discuss it, is policies and procedures. For example, the 2 that have been provided. I know the ARB bylaws were approved by ARB. Doesn't necessarily have to be at the July 6th meeting, but we would like that sooner rather than later because we've already addressed that. Planning Commission comprehensive plan, we started it, but if you guys wanted to double up on that directive for Planning Commission, that would be appropriate. We have Prince William County. It's a 1-mile review for the center at Haymarket. That's something that Planning Commission has gotten some comments. I know Emily and myself have compiled some, but we'd like to bring it to you all so that we can, bring you guys up to speed as well as if you all have any comments, because it is yet to have a meeting date, correct? So we can provide those comments. If you all have additional comments from what the Planning Commission had, we can always provide those additional comments for that 1-mile review. And then planning and zoning forms and application updates. I know that the last council and last Planning Commission, we had asked that Emily have the flexibility to update the files for the reports and the information that she needs to obtain. So that's something that will help if you all have certain information and certain aspects that you want in reports from Emily when it comes to site plans, SUPs, items like that, that what she'll be able to do is update the forms and checklists and items like that so she can make sure she can get those answers up front so that when it comes to you guys, you have exactly the information that you want, and if that information is not provided, it's not a complete application. So that's something that they kind of go together. So that's why, some things that I just want you guys to really think about. And then the last item is, I've discussed this with at least one member, is the bank account changing. So with Sona Bank moving out of town, if we were to transfer the funds that the town has, checking accounts, savings accounts, things like that, then we do get a portion of the bank franchise tax if it's here at the Fauquier Bank. We can try and calculate those costs to see if that's something that you want to do. We did have the plan that when the CARES Act money comes in, that we would put that separately with Fauquier Bank, just because the way the CARES Act is articulated, it's almost treated like a separate budget. It's for items that are not budgeted, so we almost want to keep it separate for auditing purposes. However, we can start that transition, especially if you all want that, but that's something, like I said, it's not like we have to decide that July 6th, but those are all different items that I just want to be ready to discuss.
Let me save you a whole lot of trouble. Without objection, I'd like for the agenda to include the following, and I'd like for the agenda to be bifurcated.
Right.
So you're going to have the organizational meeting first, and as part of the organizational meeting, rules of procedure, spending policy, in addition to whatever else you've already got on the list, attorney contact policy, and the meeting calendar for the next 2 years. And then we enter the regular meeting, all the other stuff, any public hearings, which I doubt you're going to have, citizens' time and all of that, and then in no particular order, an overview of the comp plan status, discussion on CARES relief funds, what the planner would like in terms of application, documentation, checklist changes, either going back to what was previously in place or what new documents you would want with respect to all zoning, development, construction, whatever you want. As far as the bylaws go for the ARB, I would say leave it to the ARB. We've got no business telling them what their bylaws are. So I don't particularly care to see that at all. I'd like to see a banking plan, and most importantly, I would like a budget review, given the current numbers on July 6th.
Right. Can I just go back to something, Bob? Organizational meeting, we have to make sure the vice mayor.
Well, I mean, that's what I said, in addition to all the stuff that he's already got.
Okay.
The appointments and all that.
Yes, the appointments.
Would it be
It's
beneficial?
going to be a busy night.
I think the other story is
For us to have, I know that's a holiday weekend. It's a holiday weekend leading up.
It'll be late.
But is it probably beneficial for us having a work session before?
Is that what you're talking about, Bob? No, right?
No. Like having a work session with items that needs to be discussed leading into the town council meeting?
We could also do the organizational meeting at 6. So the items that should be relatively quick, vice mayor, appointments.
The organizational meeting will take an hour.
That's what I was going to recommend, either that or start the meeting at 6, but that would make sense.
So, I mean, if it does take an hour, then we just roll right into the regular meeting, but it doesn't change anything. So this way, right now, everybody's used to having the regular meeting at 7 p.m. So if we have that meeting starting at 6, the organizational, the vice mayor, the calendar, the different policies, those things. But
Yeah, I think we can have the organizational at 6. I don't think that'll be critical to any town member who's working late and can't
To
see
that end, I passed out the marked up versions of the rules of procedure and the spending policy that several of us have talked about. If you want any changes made, please,
But, Mayor, could we also add 2 more items to that just behind the organizational meeting in case we finish within an hour? So we can get those knocked out before the 7 o'clock, just have discussions leading up to, so at 7 o'clock. So we may be able to do 3-4 items starting at 6 o'clock. I know Bob is saying that organizational meeting is an hour.
But that's part of the regular meeting though, and.
I really want to keep them separate.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying discussion items, that we discuss, we hash things out leading before the regular meeting.
Talking about like a work session?
Yeah. It would give us an opportunity.
If we have some time, the thing is, we'd have to
Put
come up
agenda
with-
review at the bottom.
Yeah.
That would work.
But the anticipation would be the following month, you would have the work session a week before.
Yes. But because it's a holiday weekend leading up before, instead of trying to fit a meeting in before or first Monday meeting, let's try to have some discussion. Some of these items are, I believe, are going to go quickly. But some of these items we can hash it out in our makeshift work session, and then once we hit the regular town council meeting, we just roll through them because it's a lot to take on the first meeting in July.
Yep. And Marchant, I know you already have a conflict in schedule. Is this
We have
okay
a
with
conflict
you?
schedule, but I can follow up with Chris about whether the COVID conditions apply.
It's also a provision for emergency participation.
Remote participation,
Yeah.
I'll follow up with you about it.
That's still in effect, right?
Yes.
It is still in effect.
Councilman Ware, when you mentioned the budget, so you're looking for where we're at as of June 30th on that?
I want to see
July
where we're
6th.
at on July 6th.
July 6th.
And I would like to see, because I think we're going to have to make some significant budget amendments. Obviously not going to do it on July 6th. But I think we need to know where we stand. So what I would like to see is the FY 20 as close to final figures as we can get, a snapshot in time of where we stand with cash on hand, and this goes back to my question about, or my request for what the upfront expenditure is going to be in July and August. What are our immediate cash reserves that are available without penalty? And by that I mean everything down to having to, if we have to take a CD out and early and face some sort of interest penalty, and that's not what I want. I want just, what can we literally go down to the bank and take out to pay these bills if we have to, and how much will be left over. But that's what I'm looking for.
To that end, when you're discussing the finance that you want, basically as of July 6th, then we just won't be able to provide that in the agenda packet. So that won't be available for prior review. So it'd just
You
be
can,
day
you
of.
can put it in the agenda packet as to what it is whenever you put the agenda packet out, and just hand out a revised one on.
That was going to be my next question.
will
So that way,
suffice.
we'll do whatever day, if the agenda goes out Thursday, Friday, we'll have up to date
Yeah,
that
just on the
Thursday,
agenda,
Friday.
It should be amended when you publish it.
Okay.
Especially if there are changes that happen on the 29th.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's not going to, yeah, you're right.
And did you have anything?
When do you
special?
anticipate getting the agenda up for us?
Well, as of right now, I have the rules and procedures, the spending, the contact the attorney.
I mean, when do you plan on getting it up, available for public viewing?
Kim was hopeful for 1 week prior, so that would be looking at the 29th, probably 30th, worst case. I believe she's still on the phone, but that was her plan.
Kim, did you hear that?
Here's my,
Is my phone dead? I don't know.
No.
Ken, Mr. Mayor, here's my thoughts on
Kim, you
that.
still there? Shows she's on, but she's not there.
Okay.
Your thoughts?
Here's my thought. I'm all for 1 week ahead of time. But we have no way of knowing what's going to happen on the 29th or the 30th that would impact that and change the budget numbers. So if it means pushing it back to July 1, what is July 1? Is that that's a Wednesday?
Yeah.
If it means pushing it back, I mean, because we haven't established the policy yet, but if it means pushing back
Yeah,
the...
I'm still here. I'm trying to mute my phone. No, I did not hear part of what you said.
Personally, since the
Hang on, Ken.
since the policy in place right now mandates that you put it in on the 3rd, correct?
Correct, the Friday before.
Under the current policy. Without objection, I would like it posted on the 1st or 2nd of July. I mean, because we can do that, and it gives us the opportunity to factor in what happens between now and the end of the fiscal year.
Are you saying for the agenda, Bob?
Yeah.
For the agenda packet, the materials.
Yeah, that wouldn't stop the agenda. In my opinion, I think we can roll with the agenda.
Ken wanted it up a week early.
My
and that
goal
just-
is to give a week's notice to the town. Since we are stepping in, this is a transition period, I think we can make an exception for this one. Put it out on the 1st.
Being fair to staff. We've asked a lot.
Yeah.
Wrapping up the old one. So, and we have a holiday weekend coming up. So
you and your staff-centric position, you
I've been in those situations.
bureaucrat.
Thank you, sir. Might have another. You know?
And then legally, can we do that? Can we issue an agenda without us taking office before our term starts? I mean, can we legally send out an agenda on the 30th or the 29th of June?
We make that problem go away by doing it on the 1st to the 2nd, but I
Right,
don't
exactly.
see why not.
So maybe.
So that'll solve that one
Yeah,
easily.
legally, it should be fine on the 1st.
So I did have a question about the agenda item. So on the pay for committees, if we could just have an accounting of that, the value of that, and what it means, basically just a rehash of the previous discussion. I think what
Yeah,
Florence said
and
about
and that should be
32
part of the financials that he brings out.
Okay.
We should be able to recognize right then whether we need to address it, so we can put an agenda item for it.
Was there a previous, I'm trying to remember, on the committees or on the ARB or on the PC, was there a directive about fewer numbers? Okay, do we need to undo that?
So there was a directive for the planning commission numbers to be limited to 5, and then the ARB was not to exceed a certain amount. I can pull the resolution that was done in 2 years ago.
I don't know we necessarily take action on that since we're trying to fill seats, but I remember there was, so like, you could have up to 7 or 9 on the ARB, and they retracted that.
I think the limit was 7.
Okay. So, I don't necessarily take that up on the 6th, but we need to be aware that it's out there, as we begin to get applications in and fill those seats. Social media policy, I was gonna save this for Q&A, but since it comes up now, so I just had a question, who monitors, or who's the, okay, you pointed to, okay, so.
Who's the Facebook administrator?
Me.
Okay. So maybe just, again, maybe later on, as a follow-up, since we have a lot going on the 6th, just, do you need us to revisit the social media policy?
Under policy and procedure updates, the answer is yes. I think as you all have seen, the majority of our policies and procedures, it's 2014 or 2016.
Okay.
So.
Do you have any others we haven't seen, like the attorney policy that?
I'm sure we do, because I haven't seen it either. So.
Well, that's not.
Well, if I can make a suggestion.
I was just gonna say, one thing that was helpful, the previous council, current certain council, I apologize, they did give staff a directive of what they wanted to see on social media. That was very helpful, so if that's something that, if you guys could share with us going forward, so that we know how to best fulfill what you guys want to see on Facebook, Instagram, website, and if we want to start using Twitter again.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make a suggestion that we've given the staff a lot to do. So I think if it's something that's producible and easily put together, let's ask for that. And if it's something that is going to take more time, that we be advised of that, saying, hey, we put this together, but we've noticed that we may need some additional time to do X, Y, and Z. Hopefully that'll save you some of that effort. So
And this is
I don't,
in reference to the social media?
social media are just all the policies and procedures. That's a lot to update.
Yes.
And I know we've given that, so I don't know that we necessarily want it actionable on the 6th. We just want the drafts to be available. Was that the intent? Maybe some things we want to adopt right away, like spending policy.
I think there's three that are crucial.
Okay.
The personnel policy, the spending policy, and the attorney contact policy. Everything else we can,
Yeah.
and I think to allay some of your fears or your concerns, I think a lot of what we're putting on the agenda is just sort of,
Reaffirming or?
it's where do we stand? And yes, it's a priority, but the question is, how many priorities can we handle in the next 2 months? And sort of just schedule. I think this is more just a, get our ducks in a row, and we'll deal with them in a prioritization that we determine the 6th, and probably more likely at the work session at the end of the month, because we're going to get overloaded in July just with the sheer number of things that we're doing, and I don't want to bury staff either, but there are a couple of things that we do need to get out of the way from a procedural and an administrative standpoint, and a couple of other outstanding issues. I mean, I understand your concerns. I think we're going to be okay, because I personally don't want to go into a whole lot of depth on some issues, given the urgency of some other ones. For example, Haymarket Day, I think we can push some of them down the road, but at least we'll have a sense of where we want to go.
So stuff like the checklists, I wouldn't necessarily think we need to have a renewed
No,
checklist. It's more of a general outline of the staff's ideas on how to approach it, rather than
A status,
product.
or status. Where are we, and where would you like us to go?
Okay, that's more along what I'm thinking, is just kind of a general memo.
Okay.
I'm just trying to clarify a little bit. What I'd like to do is right now we have 19 items for the agenda. So I think what I'd like to do is try and come up with a draft agenda, as well as some of these items like you all were discussing, I think that can be taken care of in reports. So like Roberto's treasure report, he can kind of hit some of the number items. So what I'll do is I'll try and send the draft, and then under like treasure report, I'll try and have some of these bullet points that are articulated, and if you all don't want that, please send it to me immediately, and then that way we can try and get everything organized, just so we can get all the questions answered, and have the discussions that we need to have.
If this appears in the reports, I'm all hunky-dory with that.
Questions I had earlier, like the building cost per building, I'm not going to suggest we look at that till later. Just trying to be reasonable. We're throwing a lot at you in a short period.
I do have one request that I think they need to fulfill. Some would argue me
Are we
more.
going to do time limits on council?
Some would argue I need this more than others. Isn't there a requirement that everybody be provided their FOIA materials prior to taking office? And I haven't seen any, although I've got more than enough in my house already.
Yeah.
Have you guys gotten anything yet?
Yeah, the clerk usually takes care of that.
Okay. I thought they had a new deadline on that.
I think you're right, it's prior to taking office.
I do have a question about, go ahead, Martin. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, for the benefit of anybody watching, that the FOIA requires that a copy of the act and a copy of the Conflicts of Interest Act be provided to you prior to your taking office, and that the clerk normally takes care of that.
Oh, okay. I'm loath to raise this, but when we were talking about risks and exposure earlier, are there things on the horizon that you think you need to discuss with us in a closed session that night?
No, sir.
So nothing immediate, no real concerns?
No.
Okay. But down the road, I would think we would need to be updated on whatever's out there.
Yes, we can have those discussions, but like Martin said, I don't think it's anything that is immediate. It needs to be.
Right. What I would suggest is that as you're doing your prioritization, we look at doing a closed session later on, and I'll provide you that report that Mr. Weir asked for with regard to everything that's outstanding right now.
Yeah. And whatever we can discuss in public, we discuss in public.
Yes, sir.
That's fine. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody got any added stuff? We're getting down to the last bit. Last chance for Q&A, I guess, right? Are we in a Q&A session, I guess?
You just ended it.
I think we just ended it then, okay. Let's adjourn, huh? You got one other thing?
I do have one thing. This
Okay.
is maybe a fun thing. When do you guys want to take your website photos? If you have one that you would want me to use, feel free to send it over as well
You
as
can
your
download
bio.
Bob's from the flyer that we did. That would be a good picture.
Just use my current one.
Okay. Yeah, so if you guys will just send me your little bio blurb that you want on the website page, I will be working on that to go live July 1, so.
Just put a do not enter sign up and that'll be suffice for me.
Put your Vote 411 picture up there. That was pretty bad.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Exactly the most
Thank you,
photogenic
guys.
person.
He just,
I gave you the good pen.
we're done, so just idle talk now. He just kind of took a camera picture. I mean, it's all